Okay, Olivia, I don't have to introduce you. Apparently, everybody knows you, so good luck.
Yes, everybody here has received at least 10 emails from me in the past 2 weeks, so no need for introductions. Nobody prepares you for the moment when absolutely everybody in the room is smarter than you, and you have to talk to them and try to actually bring out something new and something useful for them. The title of my presentation is We Didn't Think This Through, Did We? And it's going to talk about how our civic lab came to life and about how enthusiasm can be sometimes really, really bad for civic tech projects. And here we're going to start with something that I preach to absolutely everybody who's coming up with a new idea, and this is doubt everything you assume. I'm a UX designer. I have been taught to take any idea and everything with a grain of salt, and to always try to understand the context of an idea, the context of a problem, of a need, a social issue, how it comes to life, why is it happening, and can it be solved through tech, or does it have any other solution? In the beginnings of Code for Romania, we decided we're going to work with both civil society and institutions. And what we did was we're going to put up a form and we're going to wait for people to send us ideas so we can start working on them. And the form looked something like this. Who are you, and tell us your idea. Obviously, the first ideas that came through were of various kinds of apps and software products that were from a various range of domains, some of them for profit. Some people didn't understand what Code for Romania is doing, and we got, can we make an app for kids that does music and dancing, and maybe a parrot that we can digitalize, and so on. Okay, so we said we need to help people through this form to actually drain all the rubble out of these ideas, and we started asking some more. Tell us a bit more about your idea. And then we added some more questions, and then some more questions. And our form was growing every single day, trying to get exactly the problem that these people were trying to solve. And it just kept on going, month after month. We just kept on bringing in new and new stuff on this form. And then we realized we need to go back to the drawing board. And we went and we changed it. Tell us what you need. And then there was an entire wave of people telling us that they got stuck in traffic. Maybe there should be something done about those traffic lights. Maybe there's something that should be done about that postal office that didn't send them the package, and so on and so forth. Okay, we need to broaden a bit their target audience. Tell us your organization needs. And we really, really hoped at that point in time they're going to tell us, my organization works with poor children. I need an app where people can donate to these children, or where people can register to teach these children basic skills. No, we just got a lot of things like, can you build us a website? We actually need a tool to help us organize internally, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's broaden even more. And then tell us your beneficiaries' need, again hoping that we will finally get the problem they're confronting with. And then we said, never mind, let's figure this out together. And at that point in time, we realized that people are biased. You live so much at organizations, because they're short-staffed, they have very little resources, and they're so stuck in the problem they're trying to solve for their beneficiaries, that they don't see anything else outside their scope. And the forms that we were putting out were only narrowing down and did not help them gain more perspective and other points of view on the problem they were trying to address. They were stuck in the bubble, they had scarce resources. We couldn't expect all the NGOs in Romania to actually have enough people, such as researchers and people to look at data to understand the path and the behavior of the problem they were trying to solve. They had little tech know-how, because tech experts are really, really expensive, and usually, at least in Romania, until 2015, 2016, we didn't really have an active technology volunteer community. And they have a lack of capacity. And here I'm going to also address the funders in the room. Please broaden the period when people can apply for funding, because 1 month cannot allow an NGO to do research well enough to propose a good solution, be it tech or non-tech. And then there was the funding constraints. Even if you apply and you get the grant, at the end of the day, if you realize 6 months through the project, you need to change your solution a bit because the results came different from the field, because you've signed a contract with about a gazillion kind of clauses, you cannot at the end of the day switch because the funder says, I paid you for a cow, you brought me a donkey. I'm going to give you 2 examples of the time our form failed, and 2 lessons that we've learned a lot from. The first one was the accessibility map. In 2016, the National Agency for People with Disabilities sent us, through our very long form, a proposal that said we would like a map, something like Waze, for people with disabilities, because we want to encourage them to get out of the house, to socialize more, to start looking for jobs, and actually get more easily integrated in the community. And we assumed it's the national agency. They must have data. They must know that this is a problem. False. We went into research to understand the context, and people with disabilities told us, we know where we can go. There are about 10 places in Bucharest that are fully accessible for all our needs. And there is no place in Bucharest that is fully accessible for all disabilities. So if you have a hearing problem and you're in a wheelchair, and there's no place where you can actually go at this point in time. And they said, we know where those places are. What we need would be a way to report on the places that are not accessible and to get those authorities to actually put pressure on those people to make them accessible. And that was the point. That project never came through. We're still looking into it and trying to adapt it and develop it. But it's important to be flexible and to admit that you were wrong when you assumed something, which is hard for normal people. It's hard in a cultural space like Romania because we're a very entitled nation that knows better than everybody else, and it's also harder for an authority to admit that they were wrong. The university registration platform. This was one major exciting project we started on. We had one of our youngest volunteers, Radu, who came in and said, why isn't it possible in 2017 for students to register at multiple colleges in the same time and to stop spending money on train rides, on plane rides between cities? It's also impossible to register in more than 2 cities in 1 year because you cannot physically be in 3 places in the same time, and the train takes 12 hours between the major university cities. So we said, wow, that's amazing, it's a great idea, let's do this. We talked to students and everybody was, yay, finally, we can register, we can pay the tax, but we don't waste money on trains anymore, that's great. And we started working on it. And it was a lot of enthusiasm. I said, we have 6 months until the next school year, we can do this, come on, huge team around it. And then we sat down and said, why didn't anyone do this up to this point? And we realized that when we went to the universities, they said, well, that's a bit complicated. Because if everybody can register everywhere, then we can't have actually prediction on how many students we're going to have. And then, true, we're going to make way more money because more people are going to register, but at the end of the day, I don't know how many students I'll still have in the classroom. So they said, maybe pilot it, and maybe we're going to come on board later. So we had to stop because we didn't have one of the main stakeholders of the project. And this is how the Civic Lab showed up, because at some point, taking project by project, we wasted a lot of time by analyzing education, analyzing health, analyzing a problem in some other domain. We said, we need to do this structured. We need to do this through a methodology. We need to pass everything through a cycle and make sure no steps are omitted. So Civic Lab helps you at this point in time to identify the right problem and then identify the right solution for it. And it goes a bit like this. To identify problems, we have 2 ways. One is passive and one is active. The passive one, it's a website that's called What Keeps You Up at Night, where we encourage people to send us their frustrations, their problems, their needs. So a very simplified form that we were talking about earlier. And we keep on getting issues. Obviously, about 50% of them are, again, jokes or things that are kind of like, I don't know, the meaning of life and stuff like that. But we do get like real problems that we should look into as well. On the second part, the most important part of the Civic Lab is identifying and mapping the problems. And this means sitting down with experts, with all the stakeholders around the table, identifying the pain points and the needs and the problems they're facing in order to understand, is this a real issue? Is this affecting more than one person? Is this something that has a lot of implications in the communities that they've shown up into? And then we need to validate those problems. And you have 3 possible options. Either yes, that problem is a valid problem. Either no, not an issue at all, and this has happened. And yes, but with a twist. So we realize that the problem, like in the accessibility map case, it's a little bit further. So we understand that there is a problem, but not exactly the way people have formulated it initially. Then it goes to the research table. Again, I know, and this is a process that is totally, totally unsexy for funders, because there's no cheering, there's no applause when a research is over. Oh, yay, numbers, graphics, super. No, nobody cares about research because it doesn't have like a nice flag. Yay, we finished another report. But it's really important, and it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of specialists and experts that usually cost a lot of money, so we need to appreciate the ones that put pro bono work for this. So the research in Civic Lab happens through field research, it happens through roundtables, it happens through observation and documentation, and in the same time, we do tech research, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. So how did other countries solve this problem? How did other NGOs manage to figure it out and to put out a tech solution for this? Sometimes we're going to find out that nobody else thought about it. And then we're going to have to take it to the incubation phase. So all the solutions that we identify in that part of the Civic Lab goes to incubation, and out of incubation, after a lot of design thinking magic and a lot of prototyping and testing and retesting, we get the documents with the MVPs that will go afterwards in the Tech for Social Good. After incubation, you need to document and showcase. You're going to get like 50 problems, and you're going to get like about 65 solutions for them. Code for Romania, even with its large base of volunteers, cannot possibly fix everything. So we're going to put them up, documented, presented, so that anybody can come and adopt one of the solutions. Maybe it's a company that wants to solve something about urban mobility, and they have a developer team. Anybody can come and say, I'm going to pick this one up, and I'm going to fix it, and I'll let all the others take care of the other problems. The Civic Lab also means an engagement for them. So you don't just come here and say, I'm going to adopt this, and you just go away and run with your tech solution. No, we're going to come and hunt you down for results and make sure you implement and make sure you keep on using it for public good. And then, because it's not over, obviously, we need to monitor and upgrade. All these solutions need to be showcased, need to be kept alive, and this is a problem of helping the NGOs that adopt them or administer them afterwards to understand that if you have a tech solution, that doesn't stop over there. You need hosting, you need people to update them, you need security. Maintenance is quite a big problem, and nobody really thinks about it. They just want the shiny toy to launch. Then we're going to look into replication. If we're going to develop something with a local administration, for example, this needs to be available for all the other local administrations in the country or maybe abroad. We're looking into reusing and to exporting these solutions to help others in other countries also have access to them. And I think I'm the first speaker to go under 15 minutes. Yay! I'm up for questions, guys.
Okay. Hold on, I have lots of equipment here. Okay. So before we start with questions, let's just thank Olivia and the whole team for making all of this happen.
Thank you.
Okay, and now questions. From Claudio, where do researchers/academics fit in? Heard about civic groups, government, funders, nothing about these guys. They have know-how, but lazy and need to be asked.
Oh, but we do ask them. So the entire part of research, studies, and the observing documentation is done with researchers. And we actually have one in the room over there in Nicu that's coming from the University of Cluj, who's been with us for over 2 years. And I think about 40% of the entire Civic Lab is based on people who are very, very good at research and who are willing to put in hours and help, because it also helps them afterwards to have digital solutions for their work as well.
Okay, the next question might be from a donor. Where do you see Code for Romania in the next 5 years?
Well, it's going to still be in Romania because the name says so, that's for sure. But I see it way more structured and organized, and I see a lot of autonomy in the local chapters. And I also see it like being the coolest in Eastern Europe, at least, definitely. I think we are already.
Just Easter, go Europe.
Baby steps. See, never hurry. Never hurry. Always
5
research,
years.
always take steps.
Okay, next question. Why do you think there is such a big disconnect between people who know about the real problems and the people with skills to work on them?
That's an easy question. It's because there's nobody to coordinate them. There's no matchmaking. So I think the main reason, I don't think, I'm actually sure because I asked them, why did people join Code for Romania? Because up to that point, they assumed that with their skills, they can do very little. When you bring a coordinator and tell them, this is the platform, these are the resources, this is how you should solve the problem, see where your skills fit in, this is when people started, oh, okay, I can do this. This is a 2-hour task. Of course I can punch in this time. So it's a matter of actually making people understand how they can help and then to understand what impact their help can bring.
Okay. How was the Code for Romania idea received by the community?
Well, we started in early 2016, and by July there were 50 of us, because a friend, of a brother, of a cousin, of the wife, and so on and so forth. And when we launched in September, on the 23rd of September in 2016, we booked a room for 100 people, and we had 180 show up, and then 300 registrations that night. We didn't sleep. We're used to not sleeping at Code for Romania.
It seems so. How many people work in the Civic Lab?
So the Civic Lab, in terms of roles, it has about 15 roles, starting from coordinators, researchers, UX designers, tech research people, and UI designers as well for prototyping.
Where do you personally get your enthusiasm and amazing energy from?
Coffee and a lot of coffee. You can't go home and sleep when you see emails with commits coming through and when you see messages on your screen like Alex has pushed another pull request on GitHub, and then you have another question popping up and so on. When you need to give back to these people. This enthusiasm needs to be nurtured, and it's such a pity to have this immense resource at this point in time and not use it. And the fact that those people, when we launch a project, that moment when you see the smiles on their face that it's out and people are using it now, and their names are there and they're recognized for their work, it's worth any night lost.
Okay. How do we tackle volunteer attrition in projects in the long run? That's from Dragos.
That's from Dragos. Yeah, he's over there. I see him. In the long run, it's all about motivating volunteers with the fact that their work matters. And this is something that we've put a lot of effort in. All the contracts, we're the organization with the contracts in Romania. Every time we start a new project, we make sure that the people who are going to administer it afterwards, they're going to use it. The users are going to be there, and that project is not going to be left somewhere to rot in a cemetery of apps that we have already so many of.
Okay. How do you go about verifying the credibility of the crowdsourced data?
Research, cross-checking, and so on and so forth. So mainly my topic, I should have left the presentation at home and just said, hey, do research, I'm going home now. So it's all about cross-checking, it's all about testing and prototyping and testing again. Never assume you're right from the beginning.
Why so broad? Isn't it better to have specific issue organizations?
I'm not sure I follow this one. So why so broad? Why are we tackling all these fields?
That's from Anonymous. Anyone wants to take a credit for this question?
So why so broad? Because when you have a basis of over 500 volunteers, not everybody is interested in opening data, not everybody is interested in transparency or maybe culture or education. You need to keep your volunteers excited for a longer time if you have more things to do and to address.
What's the biggest challenge in building and maximizing impact of your solutions?
Time and resources. And I'm going to stick with time at this point, because you need a lot of time to administer such a big community that it's used to working in companies where everything is organized. You know where the bathroom is, you know where your tasks are, you know what's going to happen in 3 months. And you get here in a very dynamic place where you need to get your information, and you're a bit frustrated because nothing is necessarily regulated in the beginning. But we really thank our volunteers for having patience with us when we don't respond on Slack every 50 minutes and so on.
Okay, how do you report to government about what you do and why you should receive more funding? And how do they react?
First of all, we're lucky and unlucky in the same time. We're lucky we don't get funding from the government, nor we ever will, out of obvious reasons that we will talk about during the break. So we don't get funding from government, but we always try. We never actively search for an institution to build a project with them. They always came to us. But what we're doing is that we're trying to also solve their problems. So the key in having a good relationship with institutions is not to point fingers and tell them you're not doing your job, you're not doing it right, you're not doing it by the 2018 standards, but how can I help you? What's your issue inside? What can we solve both for the citizens and for yourself?
What would the perfect donor look like in your case? I don't think this is a question about physical appearance, but...
Permanent. That would be recurring and permanent. So it's a problem in Romania. We have very few people who invest in civic technology in Romania. And what they don't understand is that it's not an activity you do over the weekend. A software product can take from 3 months to 2 years. They need to understand that in order to get the results they want and to get products and applications that will last for years on end, they need to hold their breath and bear with us.
Great. You have
Thank you so
answered all the
much.
questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.